sustainability as a concept sparks different reactions from different people. And if you look at it from the very core of it, this is a result of everyone sort of having their own definition of what sustainability is. Now, if you look at the very basic definition of the concept of sustainability, it means meeting our own needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Meeting our own needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Now, in as much as that definition sounds simple, there are a lot of misconceptions around the idea. And some of them include ideas like sustainability being a thing that is specific for the environment. Some people think of it as an expensive thing or undertaking, especially if you're thinking about it from a business perspective. Some people think of it as a phase. They are like, this is a buzzword that is here now, and in a few years it's going to be gone. And some companies and businesses and individuals alike just think of it as a strategy. So they come up with this idea, or they start this startup or business, and they're like, okay, let's say we align with one of the SDGs. And some people think of it as an end station. They're like, okay, once we've incorporated sustainability, or say that we've incorporated sustainability in our business, then it becomes the end of it. No one is actually putting in the effort to understand what needs to be done next. And if there's one thing that we've learned over time, is that sustainability in itself is a fluid concept. In the early days, it used to be called social responsibility. So these were things that were nice to do. A company would be like, okay, we're going to write you a check so that you can do 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to write a check so that we can address 1, 2, 3, 4 issues for this kind of community or this type of people. And over time, these conversations have evolved to a point where now it has become an essential part of business. And if you think about it, most of this evolution that happened within the space happened as a result of conversation. Now, if there's anyone who knows about the evolution of sustainability and how far we've come, it's my guest today. Her name is Miss Judy Njino, the Executive Director, Global Compact Kenya, and current Chair of UN Global Compact Region Network Council. Welcome to the first episode of Women in Sustainability podcast series. I'm your host, Sebastian Davis Ngede. So just to get straight into it, for people who are hearing about Judy Njino, I hope I'm pronouncing your second name properly.
Yep, that's it. It's Njino.
Njino. For people who are hearing of Judy Njino for the first time, how would you introduce yourself?
So, well, because this is, of course, a more formal, conversation. So I'm the Executive Director of the Global Compact Network here in Kenya.
Yeah.
I have been running the network for the last 9 years and really grown it to become one of the largest local networks of the UN Global Compact that's mobilizing business to be a force for good.
Okay.
So my mandate really revolves around building the capacity of our member companies to understand what sustainability is, but more importantly, how to take action, practical action within their business strategies and operations.
Yeah.
So it's something I'm very passionate about. It's something that I kicked off my career back in the around the year 2008 thereabout. So I've been on a long journey, and it's been an exciting one, also seeing the evolution of sustainability as a concept, but also as a practice in this market, but also in the wider East Africa and Africa region.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we look at the Global Compact, the 10 mandates that it has, like my first question is why was it set up in the first place, especially the Kenyan version?
So the UN Global Compact as an idea was actually first proposed by the former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan back in 1999. And he was actually speaking at a conference. In fact, I think the World Economic Forum is about to convene again. So he was speaking at the World Economic Forum back then and speaking to business leaders. And he made an interesting proposition to the audience. He basically told them, can we make a global compact of shared values between we, the UN, and you, the business community? And basically, what was happening at that time is that we could see a lot of negative impacts that were accruing to society, to the environment as a result of business activities. And we said it's time to put back the human face, into globalization. And so the idea of the Global Compact actually came out as a result of a speech that Kofi Annan made. And out of that speech and that particular meeting at the World Economic Forum in Davos, a group of business leaders, about 12 of them, put up their hand and said, yes, we are actually ready to work with you and to embrace these, UN values that are enshrined in the Global Compact. And they were actually conceptualized as issues touching on human rights, the environment, and labor. Then we had our 10th principle on anti-corruption, which came on board some years later. But that's really how the Global Compact came about, and it has since grown to be the world's largest corporate sustainability initiative that is anchored in the UN, and it's actually growing by the day with increasing number of participants globally, but even here in Kenya, that are committing to advancing their business practices guided by universal values.
Yeah.
So for us here in Kenya, it's also an exciting time to see the evolution of CSR into sustainability, where businesses understand firsthand that their role in society really revolves around how do you even do business in the right way to begin with before you even think of dishing out the goodies. I think we see it every time here. Those checks that corporates give, that's not what we are talking about, but we are talking about behavior change. We're talking about, how you do business. That's the conversation we have at the Global Compact.
Okay. I like that you mentioned that it's one of the biggest, actually the biggest corporate sustainability platform. And I feel like a lot of people, like you said, confuse corporate sustainability for corporate responsibility, where now they're like, we're going to give X amount to support this category of people. So there's that aspect of these are things that are nice to do. They're going to paint us in a positive limelight. And then now there's the corporate sustainability, where now the structures that you set in place, making sure you're taking care of your people, the finances are taken care of. Because if you squander the finances, then your people don't have salaries. And I like that sort of to create a guideline, the same way SDGs do. There are these 10 principles that the Global Compact has. What are these principles and how were they brought about?
So the 10 principles of the Global Compact, which we summarize them in the 4 key issue areas that I've touched on human rights, environment, labor rights, and anti-corruption, really espouse the framework upon which we ask the business community to advance their corporate sustainability along. And so we have these principles that are anchored in key UN conventions. So the beauty is that as a global community, these are principles that we have endorsed even at government level. And so we are saying we already have an existing framework. And so we think that the business community can also relate to them in their conduct and in their day-to-day operations. So the 10 principles, as we view them at the Global Compact, are the non-negotiables of responsible business conduct. So even as we talk about the Sustainable Development Goals, we think that a company that is genuinely saying they're contributing to the SDGs cannot ignore the fact that they have these fundamental responsibilities under human rights, the environment, labor, and anti-corruption, because then this form really the bedrock of responsible business conduct, and upon which you can build up or build on to other dimensions or other issues that you would like to work on. So for us, they're eternal, they're timeless, And so we are very keen to ensure that businesses don't forget that this really, as I mentioned, remain the fundamental ways that business can contribute, to doing good in society and also, protecting our environment. So
Yeah.
those really are the 10 principles.
Yeah. And if you look at such organizations like your own Global Compact, the UN and the SDGs and the principles that you're putting in place, they are not sort of policy endorsed, are they?
Well, they actually are. If you begin to dissecting, our legal policy legislative framework, you'll actually see these very issues already firmly anchored within law. And speak for Kenya.
Yeah.
If we are talking about human rights, I'm sure you know with our new, it's no longer new, the Constitution 2010, we have a Bill of Rights that for the first time ever, it actually, articulated the role of the private sector and conferred on them responsibilities to respect human rights. So that already is a constitutional imperative that business have to take action to not only protect but safeguard rights. If you're talking about labor, our labor laws are all encompassing, and the issues that we talk about in the Global Compact labor principles and the SDGs, they touch on issues such as, the right to, to work in a safe environment. They talk about rights to collective bargaining and all these issues. So you would say that basically we are asking business to comply to the laws of the land
Yeah.
as they stand,
Yeah.
but critically we are asking them to go over and above. So we are no longer just talking about compliance, but we are saying that business have a responsibility to take a leadership role in solving the world's most pressing challenges. And you can't do this, using a tick box exercise.
Yeah.
You also have to think beyond what are some of the innovations or what are some of the partnerships or other things that I need to come up with as a business to really respond to these global challenges.
Yeah.
And so we look at it in that way that, yes, we have all these principles, the laws as the baseline, but we're asking business to go over and above that and to really see the good that they can do in society.
Yeah. And for the businesses that comply to these laws that have been set, how can they quantify and track their progress in regards to the SDGs?
So for we at the Global Compact, one of the things that we are clear about, one, we are not a compliance initiative in that we don't sort of like monitor, and we cannot like vouch and say company X, Y, and Z is making progress in, X, Y, and Z ways. We are not able to quantify that. What we are is we are a leadership initiative, and we do ask companies to look at the SDGs as a leadership opportunity and a business opportunity at that, around which they can, solve the world's most pressing challenges, but also at the same time advance their own business goals. And so one of the things at the Global Compact we've been able to do, and it's interesting, we have a new strategy that we recently launched, both a global and an Africa-specific strategy that we seek to actually, try and mobilize our businesses and our members across the globe and across the initiative to accelerate the pace around which they are, creating impact for the SDGs. And so part of that is that we've had to really repurpose our programs to support business to meet the ambitions that are presented by the SDGs. And really, for us, a key shift has been transforming like learning objectives around our workshops, around our programs, to ensure that they actually go hand in hand with target setting and performance accountability, such that when companies are plugged into a number of our programs that we are running as accelerators in key issue areas of SDG integration, gender, youth innovation, and climate, we are actually tasking these companies to come up with, concrete work plans around which they can be able to start quantifiably, measure and track the impact that they are making.
Yeah.
So we think that, to deliver on the SDGs in the next 7, 8 years, for sure, it requires some level of accountability within the private sector, with governments and all stakeholders, and for us to really deliver on the ambitions and the aims that we are all working on. So we do it in that way through some of these accelerator programs and really supporting the companies to be more intentional in setting targets and developing, work plans that they can then operationalize. Again, looking at ambition as an important aspect of that. So not just making progress and doing, the usual business as usual things, but stretching them and making them see that they can do much more and they can actually benefit as businesses at the end of the day.
Yeah. If you look at the SDGs, and this is me as a newbie in the space, someone who recently got interested in sustainability and the concept of it, I look at the 17 goals, and in my head, I'm like, there's no way any one business can sort of be able to achieve all these goals on its own or in isolation. So when you look at it from the UN Global Compact, how do you sort of enable that collective action?
Yeah, and you're right. And it was never the intention that a company should be able to try and tackle all 17 goals, at once, because we believe that businesses have, specific impacts on specific areas that touch on their operations and on their decision-making processes. And at the same time, we also believe that businesses can, provide solutions to unique challenges that are within their competencies. So you can't necessarily ask a company to, again, focus resources, time on goals which are not necessarily relevant. And so we believe a materiality approach to the SDGs, anchored by a principles-based approach, where we are saying you can't leave the 10 principles behind. Those remain your baseline fundamental responsibilities. And then you then can look at the SDGs and the specific topics that are relevant for you. And those are the ones that you will actually take, to basically, create the impact that you seek. But you mentioned a very important point. The SDGs, again, cannot just be achieved by governments or by, private sector alone. When we transitioned from the MDGs, which were heavily a focus of government, it was very clear that, we lost an opportunity bringing in other actors on board. And that's why with the SDGs, the private sector has now been identified as a critical actor in helping us solve a lot of these challenges, which in reality actually are business opportunities and require innovation and new ways of thinking. And so for us at the Global Compact, the initiative is not just for businesses, though many people might think we just focus on the corporate sector. We are a business-led multi-stakeholder initiative, but at the same time, we allow for the representation and the participation of other, actors. And this could be, academia, civil society, labor organizations. All of them have participation in the Global Compact. And we believe partnerships really is the only way to go to help us inch closer to deliver the SDGs by the year 2030. So one of the interesting shifts, even within our current, strategies, is that we acknowledge the role of ecosystem players such as business associations, government themselves, labor organizations, and we believe that if we work collectively, we'll be able to deliver the broad-based change that we seek. As a Global Compact, we also have specific coalitions that we have designed and developed that really are supposed to help business scale ambitious action. And some of these coalitions are in partnership with a broad range of stakeholders such as the UN and other thought leaders, and it touches on issues such as water and ocean stewardship. Our science-based targets initiative is also a coalition, and also recently our CFO task force is also a coalition around which we are working with partners to help again scale the collective impact of businesses in delivering on the SDGs. So for sure, collective action is the way to go to really move faster in achieving the SDGs.
Yeah. If you look at the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and I like that you mentioned the ecosystem, we have government, we have academia, we have private sector, and one of the biggest of the three is private sector. Of course, government, but private sector, and especially SMEs, which comprise of like I think they're the biggest entity when you look at it from a business perspective and in terms of numbers. So how do we make sure that these SMEs, regardless of the size, sort of become the champions of these conversations?
Yeah, and you're right. SMEs are a key pillar in the sustainability agenda. And it's unfortunate that many of them think that it's not an agenda that they should be, taking charge, because I think it also comes from this aspect that sustainability is CSR, it's about giving money.
Yeah.
And so when SMEs are constrained for resources, then they think, then, let's leave it to the big corporates. After all, they're the ones who can sign the checks.
Yeah.
But in truth, if you look at sustainability in its purity, it's about business conduct. It's about the way you do business, and not the monies that you give after you've done your business. And as you've rightly noted, SMEs are a key driver of the economy. They comprise close to 90% of businesses in Africa. Here in Kenya, they're employing close to 85% of the workforce. So already they are contributing to the sustainability agenda. One, ensuring that citizens have access to livelihood. And more importantly, if you look at the GDP and their contribution therein, they're also playing a very critical and important role, delivering SDG 1 on eliminating poverty in all its forms, and SDG 2 on reducing hunger. So they really have the potential to be the engine that propels the sustainability agenda, both directly and indirectly, provided they know what their role is in that space. And I think we can unlock their potential even further by helping them see clear linkages between the advancement of the SDGs and their own business goals, because that's where sometimes there's a disconnect. People think like it's a separate agenda from their own business. And so at the Global Compact, we are working hard and trying to support SMEs to see clearly that sustainability is indeed profitability, and not mere altruism or just a good to have. And we think that embracing the key tenets of sustainability, they can innovate, they can save costs, they can de-risk, and ultimately they can set themselves up for the next level growth. At the UN Global Compact, and I've mentioned that we do have two strategies that we are currently, anchoring our work on. SMEs are critical in also helping drive that impact at scale that we are looking for. And interestingly, many people might not know this, that 65%, close to 65% of participating businesses in the Global Compact globally are actually SMEs. And so they are already playing such a critical and vital role in driving sustainability. And we at the Global Compact are trying to match this by, curating tools and resources that support and respond to their unique needs, to make them market ready as well as partner ready. And so for us, they are, an exciting segment to work with. And we really value that they are very agile. When new opportunities come, they're the first to jump, at some of these things. And so we work very well with them, and we encourage a critical mass of them within the Kenyan business ecosystem to plug in, because other, larger corporates and those who are also playing in the larger value chain, they are also interested in working with SMEs that respond to values and really aligned to responsible business tenets. And so joining initiatives like the Global Compact is one of the ways to also make yourself attractive to partners, and also other business partners that may be out there.
Yeah. I think for most businesses and SMEs in particular, sustainability, like you said, is looked as a nice to do or nice to have kind of thing. And of course, there's that impact that they have without even thinking about it. Like you said, creating employment, which automatically caters for SDG 1 and 2. But for now, the companies and the businesses that make that sober decision to say, you know what, we want to do more. We feel like our impact could go beyond what we do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
When they decide to join platforms like yours, what is that journey like?
So first of all, when they join in, one of the things that we are, very keen on is that leadership commitment. Why do I say a leadership commitment? Because to embrace sustainability calls for you to be ready to make policy and operational adjustments in the way you do things.
Yeah.
And so even at SME level or at corporate level or whatever level, it requires a culture change that you really are committing to do business guided by, values that resonate not just here in Kenya, not just within the continent, but also globally. And so for us, we take them on a journey to understand that it's not just a commitment that ends there, but it's actually a commitment to progress, a commitment to continuous improvement. And so we help them see what the blind spots are within their businesses and how they can actually seal those. And so part of our mandate, even as local networks and as Global Compact Network Kenya, is really to support with capacity building to help them see and unpack. If I'm telling you to respect human rights, what does that look like at SME level? What are some of the considerations or issues I need to have in mind in my day-to-day, dealings or operations?
Yeah.
And so we help unpack that for them very practically, and we prepare for them, tools and resources that they can easily, digest and embed within their existing processes. And I would, call on you to also watch our SDG, or rather read the entries from our recent SDG pioneers.
Yeah.
We have two SMEs who really are demonstrating, how sustainability looks like for them at company level, and it's exciting to see that they're able to translate practically and at their level what sustainability is and what it looks like. And so for us, we take them at whatever level we find them, and we help them raise their levels of ambition in the things that they can do. And we also offer them platforms where they can come to learn, get mentorship from others who've been on the same journey and who are further along than them. So it's a very safe, close-knit community where you can also get practical, hands-on support to help you understand, how to again translate these issues more practically. So for us, I mean, like I mentioned, it's been an exciting journey working with them and really helping them see their potential and how they can use sustainability to go to the next level. Because you can't, just get into business as an SME and expect to be an SME till the end of time. Many of the large corporations we know across the world, family businesses, actually started as SMEs.
True.
So we also stretch their imagination that they can grow, but let them grow in the right way with the right values and the right, mindsets.
Yeah. What is the typical profile of an SME that says, you know what, it's time for me to put these things in place? Like, what do you see at the early stage when they come in?
So, I mean, we see them even as SMEs who are, it could be like, well, within the Global Compact, we admit at least SMEs with 10, direct employees and above.
Yeah.
But we also have those who can, demonstrate a commitment to working on sustainability, who have a lower threshold of, employees. We can also get them into the initiative. And so, I mean, we see a variety of them really manifesting interest in different ways. And so, for us, I think the defining factor with SMEs is really the leadership. when you have a leader who switched on and who actually understands the role of business in society, then you find many of them are eager and they're more readily engaged in some of these issues, as opposed to those ones who the mindset is just about um, let me just meet my operations. At the end of the day, that's all that I care about. I make money and I go home.
Yeah.
But those who believe and they see that they can actually make an impact, we see them behaving a bit differently in how they engage in sustainability and in the global compact as a whole.
Yeah. I hear a lot of passion when you talk about sustainability and what Global Compact does. And I'm curious to ask, when was your first encounter with the concept of sustainability? Because I've realized with more and more people I have this conversation with, most of them sort of bumped into it, but some of them actually went to school for it. What was the case for you?
So for me, before I joined the Global Compact in 2013, I had worked for a non-profit organization called Ufadhili Trust.
Yeah.
And Ufadhili was actually one of the pioneer organizations in Kenya and in actually East Africa that began these conversations around, corporate sustainability. But back then we were calling it CSR,
Yeah.
but defining it as sustainability today.
Mm.
And we were also, looking at issues around corporate philanthropy and what impact we can have in mobilizing local resources to power our own development. So for me, when I joined that organization, and I joined as an intern, I think that was back in, goodness, I can't even remember, maybe 2009, thereabout.
Yeah.
I joined as an intern and I was attached to this program called Responsible Business Program. And out of that, my mentors back then, Mumo Kiwito and Elkana Odembo, really immersed me into this world of corporate sustainability. And initially, we did quite a bit of research to try and understand what is the state of play in Kenya, what are businesses doing, and we could see the usual. They thought CSR is about planting trees. It's about those marathons that every corporate engages in. It's
Yeah.
about giving back to the community. It's charity that check at the end of the year. And so that was really the early manifestation of what we could see corporates understanding sustainability as. And so we did quite a bit of work to try and unlearn, help companies unlearn that that's really not the sole expression of corporate sustainability, that there is more to it. We're not telling you that what you're doing is bad, but we're just saying as businesses, you can do more. And we think your competencies would be best used in other ways where you're examining, your own business impact in terms of the decisions that you're making and your actual, actions as they may be on society, on your workers, on the environment, and all these different stakeholders.
Yeah.
So for me, I mean, that was really the journey, and it was a natural evolution when the Global Compact was launched in Kenya. I remember I used to work very closely with them, and so I mean, when an opportunity came about, I quickly joined in to also work within now a global mandate and a global framework, and so it's been exciting and
Yeah.
just a continuation of that work back then.
I think for myself, and I think millions more, when we look at sustainability, and this is based on the definitions that were there initially, where now it looked like we're giving back, we are doing you favors by supporting you, pay school fees, or donating money to do 1, 2, 3. For us, or for me, during that period, it seemed like a thing that corporate executives sitting behind a desk will decide. You guys go and plant trees and go and partner with so and so and make sure it's done. How do we change that mindset so that everyone at their own capacity, whether business or individual, feel like this is something that I need to do instead of, for example, buying bottled waters. I can just install a water purifier in the house. How do we shift that mindset?
I think awareness creation it will remain critical in this agenda. When you know better, you do better.
Yeah.
And so, for organizations such as Global Compact, and even you as an individual who's passionate about this area, and that you're also trying to raise awareness, there's a lot more work that needs to be done to just help people see that they can do things in a different way and in a way that can, ultimately help us, save the environment and, protect livelihoods and do all these things that the SDGs are calling us to do.
Yeah.
And so for me, more importantly than just raising awareness is also, walking the talk, so demonstrating practically what some of these things really mean. And it's interesting, you'll find that many of us who are preaching some of these things, we are doing the exact opposite. So for
True.
me, I've become, I would say for me, it's almost become like a way of life. The normal things that people don't even think or don't connect in their day to day is what I feel manifests very strongly, in my life. I'll be the one person who challenges my colleagues. Hey, you guys, do we need lights on during the day? I mean, we have offices facing the windows.
Yeah.
Can we not use natural light?
Yeah.
Or like you've mentioned the issue of like bottled water.
Yeah.
Can you find different ways of ensuring that we conserve the environment? And so I think we just need to be, strong advocates of this agenda, but more importantly, people who can demonstrate practically. We need to take that personal leadership for others to know what it looks like, and more importantly, why it's important that we are doing that.
Yeah. For the amazing work you're doing at Global Compact, what does it take for a company to join?
So for a company to join, it's very simple. Like I mentioned, leadership is critical, and it's at the heart of participation in the global compact. And because for us, leadership commitment is what will trigger, the adjustments that I mentioned in policy and in, operational or procedural um, ways in which we run our companies. So it requires that high level commitment. Secondly, it also calls for committing to advancing the 10 principles by embedding them into your business strategies and operations. And thirdly, it calls for a company to be accountable and transparent to its stakeholders on the progress it is making. So within the Global Compact, we have a reporting requirement that any company that joins has to demonstrate publicly to its stakeholders the progress they are making, and they issue a report that is publicly available on the UN Global Compact website. So anybody can go in there and read the progress that a company is making. But practically just means that you go into the website, the UN Global Compact.org website, and you can submit your application there. And this just requires a letter of commitment that is signed by the CEO or equivalent. And you also then need to fill an online application form, which then will capture some basic biodata. And then once we receive that, we process it within a week or two, conducting our own due diligence. And after which you'll receive a notification that you've been onboarded into the country network where you've applied from.
Yeah.
Critical and last to mention is that there's also a subscription fee that we charge participants that really just goes into supporting their engagement in the initiative. So all the capacity support that we offer is also supported through the subscription that is levied at country network level, and it's based on a company's revenue.
Oh, okay.
So it's pretty straightforward, and any company can get in touch with us at info@globalcompactkenya.org for more information and guidance.
All right. I'm gonna make sure to echo that so that guys know how to get in touch. I
Yeah.
have two more questions. The first one is sort of a piece of advice for us guys who are now establishing ourselves as a sustainability platform with the intention of making sure this message is mainstream and everyone, people in business, individuals, guys on the streets, mama mboga in the market, border riders, sort of understand what sustainability is. What is the one thing that you would not want for us to miss?
I think for you guys, and probably I'd flip the question, I would say you need to plug into initiatives such as the Global Compact, because the knowledge around sustainability is fast evolving.
Yeah.
Issues are coming up by the day. We're just, coming out of a pandemic. God forbid we are getting into another one. I think I see monkeypox now trending.
Yeah.
And so, all these, interestingly, are sustainability issues. If you look at pandemics, they are part of, the warning light in the SDGs. And so, the way we respond as businesses, as stakeholders, we need to be aligned with that leadership thinking. And so, my challenge would be that you need to plug in. We have an open source, library, and our leader summit, for instance, that's coming up, that will share, global trends around different issues, is openly available to
Yeah.
people such as you on complimentary basis to come and network and also learn what is happening in the world and that next level thinking.
Yeah.
So for me, it would be a challenge to you to also use your platform to engage at different levels and break down that communication. When you're talking to Mama Mboga there, let her understand what sustainability looks like at her level.
Yes.
It would not be the same corporate speak that you use with her.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of work to do to also customize and domesticate the way we converse around some of these issues for them to be relatable.
Yeah. The other question is sort of a chill question. If you were to wake up one day, and even before I ask that question, I just want to say thanks. The one thing that I've heard over and over during these conversations is there's a need for the information to be chewed down and communicated at different levels. So if you're having a conversation with a mama mboga, it's going to be different with if you're having the same conversation with campus students or a business or whatever it is. So depending with the audience that you're targeting, then you need to sort of break down that communication further so that it's practical and applicable. I got an example from NTWRK of ABSA, and she was talking about how, like when in primary schools, after lunch, guys would doze off. And people would think that the afternoon teachers were boring, but in real sense, it's because the schools are not, like the buildings are not green buildings. So if you're going to talk to school students about this kind of thing of climate change, then you break it down to that level so that they understand. So I agree. There's a need for that. And I want to say thank you for that piece of advice. We'll make sure to follow through. And also just to look at the platform that you've mentioned and just to network with the right people. And now for this other question is, if you were to wake up one day as one of the SDGs, which one would it be and why?
That one is easy. I'd say SDG 5, because I believe in gender equality and I feel like we still have a very long way to go to achieve that particular goal in terms of mindsets and in terms of actual practice on the ground.
Yeah.
And for me, being a business leader and a young person at that, and I see the potential that I have in contributing to solutions. And you get into spaces where people automatically write you off because you're a woman.
Exactly.
And we see it even in the political space. You've seen some of the conversations around. I would say, for instance, Martha Karua, when she came out with her candidacy, some people tend to forget and focus on that aspect of her being a woman, and trying to
Forget the
take away
achievements.
from her.
Yeah.
And she's a leader in her own standing, so judge her by that merit. So for me, SDG 5 remains dear to my heart. It's one of the things that I'm passionate about, even with those that are mentoring around me, to be able to know that we were all created to live to our highest potential, and nobody should be subordinated to another.
Yeah.
We are just different, but we are all capable, is what I would say.
Yeah. We leave no one behind.
Exactly.
And I like what you're saying, because I've seen a lot of comments, especially online, where guys are like, and sometimes it's even fellow women who are like, no, we can't have a female vice president and all
Yep.
that. So it makes you wonder why, But I guess also it's because it's embedded in our culture,
Yep.
and people are not like really exposed to this ideology that we are all equal, and
Exactly.
things work best if we are partners and if we support each other, when we support each other.
Exactly.
All right, thank you, Judy. This has been amazing.
No, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. It was a good conversation. I enjoyed it. Happy to share.
That has been episode 1 of Women in Sustainability podcast series. A big thank you to Miss Judy Njino for making the time to have this conversation with us, and an even bigger thank you to the amazing team at UN Global Compact Network Kenya that ensured that this conversation was actually scheduled and that it did happen. If you enjoyed the episode, please feel free to subscribe to the podcast, leave a comment, share this episode with your friends and colleagues, and make sure to tune in next week, Friday, as this is a weekly podcast and we have amazing content coming up every single Friday for the next 13 weeks. My name is Sebastian. Follow me on all social media platforms at The Kenyan Entrepreneur. And if you know any woman in sustainability whose opinion you'd like to hear on the podcast, please feel free to leave a comment and DM me so that we can have this conversation. The idea of this podcast is to make sure the sustainability conversation is a mainstream conversation, and that it doesn't seem like a conversation of corporates or government only, because even at our own individual level, we have a responsibility to ensure that as we consume what is there, we also don't compromise the ability of the next generation to access these resources. Peace out and bye.